20 children got on a school bus in Uganda and never came home. This is not just a traffic story. This is a mirror held up to every African nation still treating its children as expendable on broken roads, in broken systems, with broken accountability. Today we break down what happened, why Uganda's roads are a silent war zone, and what this tragedy could mean for the future of child safety across the continent. On a road in Uganda, a bus carrying school pupils on a trip plunged into disaster. 20 children lost their lives. Dozens more were injured. And within days, the Ugandan government suspended all school trips nationwide. That decision, reactive, painful, and long overdue, tells us everything we need to know about how African governments respond to preventable catastrophe. We are going to unpack every layer of this story, from the road conditions that made this possible, to the political players who must be held accountable, to what a truly Pan-African response to child safety looks like. Stay with me. Section 1: The Road to Tragedy. Let's start with context, because without context, this story becomes just another sad headline that people scroll past. Uganda loses thousands of citizens on its roads every single year. The Uganda Police Force reported over 3,500 road fatalities in recent years. That is roughly 10 people dying on Ugandan roads every single day. Every single day. And yet, road safety has never been treated as a national emergency. Why? Because the victims are largely poor. They travel in overloaded minibuses called taxis, in trucks with bald tires, in vehicles that would be scrapped in Europe or North America before they ever touch a road. The infrastructure is underfunded, driver licensing is riddled with corruption, and vehicle inspection systems are so weak they are essentially decorative. Now, school trips in Uganda, as in many African countries, often rely on privately hired buses. These are not always regulated school transport. They are commercial vehicles rented out to schools because there is no dedicated, safety-certified school bus fleet. The bus involved in this tragedy was carrying pupils on what should have been a routine educational excursion. Instead, it became one of the deadliest accidents involving children in Uganda's recorded history. This is the backdrop. Thousands of deaths normalized over decades. A transport sector starved of investment. And children paying the ultimate price. Section 2: What is happening right now? In the immediate aftermath of the crash, the Ugandan Ministry of Education moved quickly, at least on paper. A nationwide suspension of school trips was announced. Schools were ordered to halt all excursions pending a full review of transport safety protocols. Government officials expressed condolences. Investigations were promised. And the country grieved. But here is the critical question Pan-African analysts must always ask: is this a genuine policy shift, or is it crisis management optics? Because we have seen this pattern before, not just in Uganda, but across the continent. A tragedy strikes. A ban is announced. Committees are formed. And 6 months later, nothing has structurally changed. The roads remain deadly. The vehicles remain unregulated. The children remain vulnerable. What Uganda needs right now is not a suspension. A suspension is a pause. What Uganda needs is a transformation, a fundamental overhaul of how school transport is certified, monitored, and enforced. That means mandatory vehicle safety inspections for any transport contracted by a school. That means trained, licensed drivers with clean records. That means GPS tracking on school vehicles. That means real penalties for schools and transport companies that cut corners. The question is whether Uganda's political leadership has the will to turn grief into genuine structural reform, or whether 20 small coffins will be forgotten by the next budget cycle. If this story matters to you, like this video right now. Help more Africans see this story. Every like pushes this to someone who needs to hear it. Section 3: The key players and stakeholders. So who holds power in this moment? Who are the actors that can actually change the outcome? First, the Ugandan government, specifically the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Works and Transport. These two ministries are the frontline decision makers. The Ministry of Education controls what schools can and cannot do. The Ministry of Works and Transport controls road safety standards, vehicle licensing, and infrastructure investment. For real change to happen, these two ministries must coordinate, and they must be pressured by civil society to follow through. Second, parents and civil society organizations. In the wake of this tragedy, Ugandan parents are not just grieving. Many are angry. Parent-teacher associations, child rights NGOs, and advocacy groups have a window right now, a narrow but real window to push for legislative accountability. History shows that sustained civic pressure after tragedies is the only thing that forces governments to act beyond the press release. Third, international partners and donors. Uganda receives significant development funding from the World Bank, the African Development Bank, and bilateral donors including the European Union and the United States. Road safety and school infrastructure are fundable priorities. The question is whether those funds are deployed with real conditionality tied to measurable safety outcomes or whether they disappear into procurement bureaucracy. Fourth, and perhaps most importantly, African regional bodies. The African Union has a road safety strategy. The East African Community has transport frameworks. But these remain largely aspirational documents. 20 dead children should be the catalyst that turns aspirational language into binding regional standards for school transport safety. Subscribe right now for honest, Pan-African analysis you will not find on CNN or BBC. We cover these stories with the depth and respect they deserve. Section 4: The Pan-African implications. Now let us zoom out because Uganda is not alone in this. This tragedy is a Pan-African problem wearing a Ugandan face. Across sub-Saharan Africa, road traffic accidents are the leading cause of death for children and young people aged 5 to 29. Let that land. The leading cause of death. Not malaria. Not conflict. Roads. Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, Tanzania, Ethiopia, every major African economy is fighting this same silent epidemic. And in almost every case, the story is the same: under-resourced road safety authorities, a culture of impunity for dangerous driving, and governments that respond to accidents with press releases rather than policy. But here is the Africa Rising dimension that I need you to hold on to, because this continent is not just a collection of problems. It is a collection of solutions waiting to be scaled. Rwanda, a country that has undergone extraordinary institutional transformation, has made real strides in road safety. Road fatalities in Rwanda have dropped significantly over the past decade through strict enforcement, mandatory seatbelts, and zero tolerance for drunk driving. Rwanda shows that African governments, when they choose political will over political convenience, can save lives at scale. Ethiopia has invested in road infrastructure as a central pillar of its economic development strategy, reducing journey times and improving safety on major corridors. South Africa, despite its challenges, has some of the most sophisticated road safety legislation on the continent, legislation that other African nations can adapt and adopt. The tools exist. The models exist. What Uganda and the broader continent needs is the political courage to implement them without waiting for the next tragedy. Section 5: What this means for Africa's future. So what does this moment mean for Africa's future? It means that the generation of African leaders who want to be taken seriously on the world stage must start by protecting the most basic right of African children, the right to arrive safely. You cannot build a 21st century economy on roads that kill 10 people a day. You cannot build a knowledge economy if children are afraid to get on a school bus. But I want to end this section with something that does not get said enough. African civil society, parents, teachers, journalists, youth activists is increasingly refusing to accept preventable death as normal. That refusal is power. Every parent who demands accountability from their school. Every journalist who covers these crashes beyond the initial headline. Every young African who shares this video and says this is not acceptable is participating in a continental movement toward the Africa we deserve. Uganda suspended school trips. That is a start. But the next step is for Uganda and every African government to build a road safety system worthy of the next generation. Because that next generation, they are watching. They are organizing. And they will inherit both the roads and the responsibility. Before you go, drop a comment below. Should African governments mandate dedicated, safety-certified school buses? Should transport companies face criminal liability when children die in preventable crashes? Tell me what you think. Your voice in the comments is how we build the Pan-African conversation this continent needs. End screen. Check out this next video. We cover another story where an African government was forced to act by the power of its own people. Because across this continent, From Kampala to Lagos to Nairobi, ordinary Africans are refusing to accept the ordinary. The Africa Rising narrative is not a slogan. It is a daily act of courage by millions of people who deserve better and are fighting for it. Comment your thoughts below. I read every single one. And if you are new here, subscribe. Because this channel exists for one reason, to give African stories the analysis they deserve. See you in the next one.